everyone. Welcome to SINGA Webinar 2020. It is heartening to see over 400 participants in our midst today, and over the next 7 to 8 minutes, I will be giving you a brief of the SINGA program and the benefits that come with this program. Yeah, next one, please. A-STAR is a leading public research agency in Singapore, and the Singapore International Graduate Award, SINGA for short, is a full PhD scholarship for international students pursuing their PhD in Singapore. It is also a program that involves the collaboration between A-STAR and the three top autonomous universities, namely the National Technological University, the National University of Singapore, and the Singapore University of Technology and Design. And the degree will be conferred by NTU, NUS, or SUTD. Our collaborators, NTU, NUS, are top universities ranked high in the world. NUS is ranked 11th based on QS World Ranking University in 2020 and is ranked first in Asian university rankings. Similarly, NTU is ranked 11th based on the US QS World Ranking 2020 and is second in Asian university ranking. SUTD is a young and growing university founded in 2009 with a multi-million-dollar budget to spearhead growth in aviation, cities, and healthcare, supported by capabilities in artificial intelligence and data science. The SINGA program is a 4-year, fully funded PhD program supervised by A-STAR researchers and or university professors. It supports up to 4 years. It supports up to 4 years PhD. However, it can also take up to 5 or 6 years as long as the student is able to cover the rest of the living allowance over here. The PhD program will be conducted in labs with world-class infrastructure and will be carried out in English. The lab will be your chosen one at one of the A-STAR research institutes, and together, of course, partner with our research, with our universities. All current Bachelor of Science or Master students and graduates are welcome to apply. So for eligibility, it is open to all international students with excellent academic performance and strong passion for research, and who are proficient in English, written English, and spoken English. Although, please note that GRE or TOEFL are not a requirement in the application process. You should also get ready some strong recommendations from your referees when you are applying. There will be a monthly stipend of $2,000 when the scholarship is awarded, and it will increase to $2,500 after passing the qualifying exams. We will also be giving one-time airfare grant up to $1,500. And all your tuition fee will be fully covered with a one-time settling in allowance. Last but not least, you will also be provided with a medical insurance while you are here. And there will be no bond to this scholarship. I shall now go through with you how to apply for this scholarship in 3 simple steps. Next slide, please. First of all, we encourage you to access to SINGA webpage, which I've asked my colleague to put the web link at the chat for you to access to, and browse through the projects under the research areas on the SINGA page and look at them, which the areas of interest, and have a proposal put on it. Get ready the documents for the application, such as your passport, your transcripts and certificates, plus the 2 nominated referees that I mentioned earlier on. So you will not be required to apply separately to the university. For SINGA, it's a one-stop shop and a single website that you can access to. And again, GRE, TOEFL, IELTS, SAT and GATE scores are not mandatory for the application. I think this is the most important part of the application, where you need to know which research areas are you interested in, the projects that you want to get. yourself involved in and look through them carefully. And you may contact the supervisors to discuss the projects, although this is not mandatory. The application deadline are 1st of January 2021 for August 2021 intake and 1st of June 2021 for January 2022 intake. After you have submitted, please remember to inform your nominated referees. I shall show you the page that how it looks like in accessing. Once you get into the link, you will see this as a web page, and the research area is now circled on top. Click on it, and you will see the next level of it, of all the projects that will be listed. This is just one example of the projects listed under the Horizontal Program Office for Urban and Green Tech. So I have then, after the application, shortlisted candidates will be notified by email 12 weeks from application closing date. And the selected supervisor will conduct first round of interviews, followed by a final round interview by A-STAR or the universities. All applications are reviewed after the application closing date, and you will know the results within 1 month after the final interview. Reapplications are welcome if earlier applications were unsuccessful. So I've come to the end of my presentation. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have, and we will answer them.
Thank you very much, Chewa. I see the chat is getting very lively. So now it's my great pleasure to introduce Associate Professor Loh Sian Jin, Executive Director of the Institute of Materials Research and Engineering, who will discuss PhDs, how do you choose a PhD, and also how do you choose a PhD supervisor. Sian Jin, welcome.
Hello, good afternoon to everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. Jermaine, can I share screen? I've just got one slide to share. Is that possible? Okay. Let me just do this. Prepare one. Okay. Now, I'm here today to share with all of you a little bit of the tips and tricks on what you should look out for when you are looking for a PhD supervisor as well as a PhD topic. Now, the first thing that we always want to think about is to select a project of your interest. Now, this is very important because a PhD is something that you will need to look into for the next 4 years of your life. And of course, it makes sense to be doing something that you're passionate about. Do not choose a topic just because it is the hot area or the latest cool area at the moment. But rather, I think that you should choose something that you have always been dreaming of doing, maybe since you are young. Now, tip number 2 is to choose a supervisor who excites you. And I think this is important because a supervisor is somebody who will be with you throughout the 4 years. And it is important that during times where it is very difficult for your PhD work to find any headway, it is important that your supervisor is somebody who is able to motivate you as well as to get you excited about the project again. The supervisor usually has a variety of ways, and I think that this will lead on to another point later, which is about personal chemistry. But in general, when you speak to a supervisor, try to find somebody that you can converse with and that you feel that there's a good personal rapport. Now, the third thing, and this is very important, is that when you go for the interview, where possible, please turn on your video in Zoom for the interview. This is especially critical because I think a lot of us, when we are in a Zoom environment, we may get a little bit nervous and we get a bit introverted and shy. But if you observe this now, if I turn off the video now and I just speak to you like that, this is really a black screen with no emotions, no way of judging what I look like, and no matter how excited I am about the topic, I'm unable to show it. So therefore, I think turn on your video and try to express yourself using a variety of ways, your body language, other than the tone of your voice. And this will in turn give a very good impression to your prospective PhD supervisor as well. Now, this part, the fourth part, is actually very important, personal chemistry. Now, when we talk about personal chemistry, we have to think really what is the relationship between the supervisor and the student. It is not just a top-down teaching approach, but rather it has to be two ways. In a research project, usually the student will propose ideas to the supervisor, and there would be a communication aspect whereby the student and the supervisor discuss to find out the best pathway or the best strategy for the direction of the project. Sometimes, in life, we have a couple of people whom we meet and we know instantly that we cannot really work with them. And it is important that if you do detect this sort of signals, you might need to reconsider whether or not this is somebody that you wish to work with. Therefore, personal chemistry is actually very important. If a person immediately feels hostile to you and you do not have a very genuine sense of security when working with this person, then perhaps it is time to look for another supervisor. The next part is that after speaking to the supervisor, request to talk to various people in his lab, particularly the person whom you would be working with on the project. So in a typical research laboratory, it is very rare that the student works directly with the supervisor on a day-to-day basis. Usually, for such cases, the student will have to work with maybe a senior postdoc or a senior PhD student. So in this case, when discussing with the supervisor, it is important to request to get to know the variety of people, whoever you're going to work with, the PhD, the senior PhD or the senior postdoc. When you speak to these people, you get a sense of what kind of environment the laboratory is like. Get to ask many questions, like, for example, how many group meetings do they have? How often does the supervisor go to the lab? And how strict or what kind of expectations does the supervisor has? And through these kind of interactions, you are able to build up a very good impression of the laboratory, even before you step into one. Okay, and these are the 5 tips. I don't want to take up too much time. These are the 5 tips that I have. And of course, if there's any questions here, be happy to address anything here. Thank you.
Thank you, Xianjun, for those invaluable tips and insights. And now I'm sure all of you would like to hear what it's like to be a SINGA awardee or SINGA alumnus, as the case would be. It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Matias Jose Caldes to speak to us about his experience. Hi, Matias. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for Jermaine for your introduction and for the SINGA people to invite me to talk about my experience in SINGA. So I have graduated now about 3 years ago from SINGA, and today I will talk to you about why did I choose to come to Singapore and where do I actually come from and how was my experience and my career development after SINGA. So can we move to the next slide, please? So I'm actually originally from Argentina. So in 2012, I made the decision to come to Singapore based on the willingness to have a different experience. So I actually wanted to travel to China. And by then, the embassy in Argentina from China encouraged me to go to a more cosmopolitan city that they speak English. I actually didn't know that time about Singapore. So the embassy in China mentioned Singapore and Hong Kong. So I decided to come to Singapore because it was actually less crowded than Hong Kong. And after I finished my PhD in NUS, I moved to the lab of the world-renowned immunologist Professor Shizuo Akira in Japan. And I did a postdoc training there for about 2 years and a half. And recently I came back to Singapore to continue my research development career. And I am still a visiting researcher in Osaka University in Japan. And now I am a senior postdoctoral researcher at the same institute where I did my PhD. So I come actually from very humble beginnings. I come from a working class family in Argentina. And to me, the fact that SINGA gave me the opportunity to to finish my PhD and to have a scientific career was like literally a dream that came true. So next slide, please. So why did I decide to become a scientist? When I was doing my undergraduate student studies, I was doing a lot of vocational service. I was working with a group in church where we were assisting mothers and newborn babies in the hospital. And I was assisting also with the Red Cross people from different neighborhoods in Argentina. We were giving them food, and I was working actually giving tuition for students with HIV. So I was doing all of this vocational service. And one of these experience I met, actually, if you can see this photo on your left, I met a mother that she was holding a very sick child. So she told me all of the experience that the child had a leukemia. And then I was really, really involved in the treatment of the child. I even donated my bone marrow and it was not compatible. I did a lot of apheresis. And some months later, the child passed away. So that experience actually hooked into my heart. And since that day, I committed to become a scientist to help children with pediatric disorders to come out with new therapeutic approaches for them. So after graduation, I decided to become a scientist. Next slide, please. So when I chose Singapore, I was really very keen to have this experience that I told you before. And to me, it was clear that my experience has to be as far as possible from Argentina because I wanted to discover new things in the world. And also, I didn't want to have a language barrier. So that's when the embassy in China suggested me to come to Hong Kong or to Singapore. And I also didn't have so many cultural barriers. So taking into consideration all of these things, I actually chose Singapore. And as I told you from the beginning, my experience in Singapore was a really strong personal development experience. I felt in A-Star like it was my home, and that's why I actually decided to come back from Japan to Singapore. I, I have gone through all of the phases, so becoming a PhD student, then leaving for some more training, and now coming back to IMCB. And having such an international environment in research like what we have in Singapore makes you feel like you are always home. So currently I am starting next week my new job here. And I am really looking forward to see as many applicants as you joining us in the A-Star family very soon. So this is all from my side. I am really looking forward to hear your questions that you may have. Thank you.